Good evening. Namaste. Welcome to the second session of the storytelling series of India Tourism Mumbai, which is conducted by the regional level tour guides from the Western region. This webinar series is an attempt to revive the tradition of storytelling, which is slowly seeing a decline in our society. In fact, our Honorable Prime Minister, in his Man Ki Baat address on 27 September, spoke about this issue and stressed how the art of storytelling, which is slowly diminishing from our homes. So, as we all know, storytelling has been a part of the human nature. We are all naturally drawn to a good story in movies, in books, or just everyday talks. Now, this is one of the most used marketing strategies also, especially in the tour and travel business. A good story can be told in many different ways, whether it's through photos, videos, or websites or social media. But the best experience is to hear the stories from our tour guides who really make a whole difference in our experience of visiting a place, a monument, with their immense knowledge and their skill of describing these monuments. Let me share a very recent personal experience. I was in Ahmedabad yesterday. After my work, I had few hours to catch my train. I decided to visit few iconic sites in the India's first heritage city and called up a regional level guide, a friend, Miss Kavi, who was to check if she is free and who can show me around. And it was such a lovely decision that she joined. And my experience of walking the streets of Ahmedabad with a storyteller really made a difference. Otherwise, I would have just read something about them on my internet or book and then understood. So this is how storytelling and tourism go hand in hand. There is a very famous saying by the renowned explorer and traveler Ibn Battuta, who said, traveling, it leaves you speechless, then turns you into a storytelling. Unquote. See, yesterday I had experienced this, and now I'm telling this story to you. Often the sights we see when we travel are so new, unique, or so beautiful that we may have no words to say. And I'm often awestruck by the historical sites, cultural icons, and geographic features that our country offers. And it is truly a kind of an incredible experience. Although words can never truly capture the essence of beauty of many places, after all, experience the scenes. All you want is to do is to share your stories. Thus, we have today the story about Kanhari Caves, a Buddhist jewel in urban forest, being brought to us by Sri Shailesh Mulley, a very senior regional level guide from Mumbai. Let me give a brief introduction to Kanhari. In fact, the green lungs of the city of Mumbai, the Sanjay Gandhi National Park, as it is known, is very much within the urban limits of this city and has a large number of flora and fauna, and as well as the first source of Mumbai's water supply also. The ancient Buddhist sites of Kanheri Caves is located within this natural forest, and one of the main highlights of this park is a network of 2000-year-old Buddhist rock cut caves, numbering almost 129. The Deccan Plateau, which is located in the south of Tropic of Cancer, is geologically blessed to its layering of ingenious rock soil, which is responsible for creation of such caves. A visit to these caves will reveal fascinating information about Buddhist monks who who have gone from village to village in the area during those time preaching, and then who would take shelter inside these caves during the monsoons rains. And in fact, if you go deeply and see what this word Kanhari means, uh, historically, if the word means is derived from the word Sanskrit, which means Krishnagiri, uh, again, which translate to black mountains. And when the tourists are here, they can view magnificent relics of Lord Buddha and Bodhisattva and walk along the pillared corridors of the prayer hall. In fact, I don't be talking much about the monument, as we have Shailesh who will be kind of taking us in detail. And to briefly introduce our storyteller, Mr. Shailesh Mulley is a senior regional level guide from the 1996 batch. He joined the guide training course of India Tourism Mumbai after completing his studies in MBA in marketing and in French language. And over the last 24 years, he has successfully guided many international visitors to India, sometimes even traveling with them to different parts of our great nation. Shailesh main history lies in the interest lies in the history, nature, and learning about different cultures. So let us look at the magnificent Canary Caves through his eyes. Over to you, Mr. Shailesh. Please take the web screen. It's your time now. Thank you. Yeah, you have to unmute, Mr. Shailesh.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you for such a lovely introduction. And I'm very honored to be here on the invitation of India Tourism Mumbai to talk about my experiences and my view of Kanheri. Uh, when we talk about National Park or Sanjay Gandhi National Park and the Kanheri Caves, many of the people who have spent their childhood in Mumbai have fond memories. My personal memory of National Park first is from the time when I was, I think, less than 10 years old. And I was taken to visit a distant relative who lived just close by. And next morning, I was promised that I'll be taken to see a toy train, and we'll take a ride in the toy train. So next morning, we went all, with my parents and the hosts, and we realized that the toy train was not working. So we ended up climbing all the way to the hill of Gandhi Technique, and we sat over there, had our snacks, and then returned home. So the first experience was not really a pleasant one because I remember crying that I wanted to use the toy train, which was not there. But then as the time grew and as I grew, we joined college, and in college we had a lot of extracurricular activities. And my most favorite extracurricular activity was trekking. And the cheapest destination for the trekkers in Bombay is National Park. So I explored various trails of National Park over many years of my school and colleging time. Then I got introduced to nature, flora, fauna, which also caught my interest. But in true sense, the interest to the history of Kanheri Caves came into with the learning of tourism from the tourist office. I joined the course in 1996, run by tourist office to become tourist guide. And we had an excellent teacher, Dr. Yashwant Raikar, a historian and archaeologist himself. He was the one who kindled interest of history, archaeology, and especially Kanheri Caves, with whom we have learned a lot, and with whom I kept in touch many years afterwards as well, and helped him out when he was composing a book on the history of Mumbai. Fond memories of Dr. Riker, and thanking him as well as the India Tourism for bringing me towards the history of this very important monument of India. I will start my presentation. One thing I will request everyone to switch off your videos, please, to save the waveband. Also, the mics, and I'll be sharing some slides. If there is some technical glitch, that may happen, please bear with us and be with us. Okay. So I'll be sharing from my PPTs. Yeah. Can everyone see this?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We can see it. Make it full screen. It will be
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
Yes. There we are. So that's the topic. Kanheri, the Buddhist jewel in an urban forest. When we talk about Kanheri, we naturally talk about the national park, the Sanjay Gandhi National Park, and the setting is so mesmerizing. Everyone probably remembers this entire aspect. So let us go ahead and see what is there to offer. Sanjay Gandhi National Park, the green lungs of the city of Mumbai, has an area of about 87 square kilometers. It has a huge variety of flora and fauna. and the greatest predator, the leopards are there within the forest in their natural habitat in the free condition. Then there are many activities which are started because this forest is under the Forest Authority of Government of India, and they have permitted a lot of activities within the forest. So there is a toy train, there is a small lion safari, and there is a small hill which is very close to the main entrance of the national park, and that is called the Gandhi Technique. That is the smallest trail you can have in this national park, which can be done by anybody, irrespective of their age. Then there is a government nursery. Then there is a natural information center, which is a very important activity organizer center. They organize camping, they organize the butterfly garden visits, nature trails, and bird watching for people of any age. So you can get more information of that. Sorry, when and participate in those kind of activities. That is also the important part as we start with the visit of Kanheri. You have to know about Sanjay Gandhi National Park. Um, that is the main entrance, Sanjay Gandhi National Park. Yeah, 87 square kilometers, natural forest, green lungs of city of Mumbai. So I always invite people when I introduce this thing. I say, forget your plastic outside this gate. If you carry your food items, I mean, I'm sure you can survive without that food for few hours of the day. Or if you want to carry, you can carry your lunch boxes, carry your water bottles, but whatever you carry the garbage back outside this forest area, because even if you throw the garbage in the dustbins, there are monkeys and birds who will take them out, and it will again create a major problem for the nature. We certainly don't want to do that. Let's move on ahead. That is the map of the national park. I'm showing this map just to give an idea of how huge the area is. You can see those blue colored areas, which are the two important sources of water. They were the first water sources for the city of Mumbai. The entire forest is actually divided into two sections by a creek, which is a Vasai Creek, which is to the north. You can see over here with my cursor. And the black line that you see around the forest area is the road, that's Western Express Road on the western side, starts from Borivali and goes all around and comes to Thane. So this is a very important location. The entrance of Borivali Gate is on this side. This one is the Gandhi Tekri and the Gandhi Chhatri, as we call it. And then we have the Kanheri Caves, which is 6 kilometers away inwards from the main gate. There are many ways of going there. You can carry your own vehicle, of course. You can rent out a bicycle, and you can also take a bus if it's available. You can walk it out if you are so enthusiastic about it. You can reach by all the methods to the gates of Kanheri Caves. The word, as Sir just now mentioned, it comes from Krishnagiri. Krishnagiri is a Sanskrit word which means the Black Mountain, which was converted into Prakrit Kanhagiri, and Prakrit Kanhagiri became Kanheri in the colloquial terms. So that's the beginning, that's the origin of the word Kanheri. And Kanheri is a mountain, a small hill range, which is inside the national park. So some salient features, because there are so many unique features of Kanheri. Kanheri has, it's a hidden jewel. I mean, there are so many rare things that are found at Kanheri from the historical point of view. That is one unique place where, you understand its importance once I narrate it. So there are over 120 rock-cut Buddhist caves as a single group. Now, nowhere else in India we have such a huge group of rock-cut caves all together as one single group. Nowhere else. This is the one unique place. That's one unique factor of our own Kanheri. Yeah. Then, apart from that, in fact, there are researches going on, and I'll show you towards the end of this slideshow that in 2016 there was an article published by Times of India, which says that they did some research in 2015, and to the east, further in towards the forest, towards the east of present Kanheri Caves, they found one more group of 7 caves, which are slightly older than Kanheri. So this is a very interesting discovery, telling the importance of the location. One unique place because of 120 rock-cut Buddhist caves as a one single group anywhere in India. What is the second unique feature of Kanheri? It covers over 1000 years of history. So what's the big deal about it, you would say? Now, one important thing is 1000 years of Buddhist history. In which phase? The oldest, some historians believe that earliest caves were carved from the 1st century BC, but some historians say that probably it was 1st century AD. Nevertheless, that was the first phase of Buddhism. Then Buddhism itself saw evolution. So over 1000 years, the Buddhist religion itself saw changes, modifications, evolutions. It saw so many changes, political changes. Different rulers came and went, different dynasties came and went, and different traders came and went. So it saw huge change over this huge period of 1000 years, and such cluster of Buddhist caves, which has seen such a huge period of Buddhist history, starting from the first branch of Buddhism, Hinayana, then the second branch, Mahayana, and then the third branch, Vajrayana. Nowhere else, as at one place in India, nowhere else to be seen apart from Kanheri. That's the second most important feature. Third, since it has a history of 1000 years, as I just now mentioned, it has imprints of three major streams of Buddhism: Hinayana, which is also called as Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. Next, first ever stone sculpture of 11-headed Avalokiteshvara. In the branch of Vajrayana Buddhism, they practice worship of Avalokiteshvara, which is represented with 11 heads. We'll see his photograph as we go ahead, and I'll tell you more about it. But to highlight the uniqueness of Kanheri, I take up this thing, and this one is actually the most important factor, because nowhere else in India there is a statue, stone statue carved in rock, of course, of Avalokiteshvara with 11 heads, which is older than Kanheri statue. So this is the oldest statue of Avalokiteshvara. Apart from number of inscriptions that are found over there, there are in all 77 inscriptions which have been decoded. Most of them are written in the Brahmi language, Brahmi script, I'm sorry, and some of them are even in Devanagari script. But unique thing is there are some inscriptions in Pahlavi script, the old Irani script, and the Japanese script. It was believed that this Japanese script was actually Chinese, but no, it is a Japanese script, and it has been translated, and we'll talk about it. We'll see its photograph as well. I'm just highlighting the salient, the most important parts, why Kanheri is so important. The water channel system. Now, there are many rock-cut caves all over India at various places, and many of them have also the water reservoirs at the entrance. But very few of these caves have a channeling system wherein a channel has been cut in the rock to direct the water towards these reservoirs. So that's a very unique feature of Kanheri, and not found in many places anywhere else apart from Kanheri. Now, one more feature, one of the tallest monolithic ancient statues of Buddha in India. This was I'm talking about the cave number 3, where I'll show you the picture afterwards, of course. But this statue was carved in the 2nd century CE, and it is I'm sorry, not second, in the 5th century CE, and it's almost 7 meters tall. So it's one of the oldest tall statues of Buddha. So as we go ahead, I've chosen this my first failed attempt of going there and having a joyride in this toy train. Its function is functioning nowadays, and I've chosen this photograph because it shows the picture of Krishnagiri, the name of the mountain. Many of the photographs I have chosen are from the net, and at the end of this slideshow, I have given the credit to them, and the sources are mentioned in the last slide. So anybody if is interested to find more about it, you can check those sources. So you have managed to walk from the main gate 6 kilometers probably, or cycle it out. Okay, one thing I must say, those who want to cycle it out, just remember one thing: towards as you reach closer to Kanheri Caves, there is a steep climb for the road. So cycling on that climb is a huge challenge. So be sure that you are aware of that part. Otherwise, you have to carry your bicycle in your hand and reach at the base of Kanheri Caves section, panting with the bike in your hand. So just be sure, be aware that there is a steep hill. As soon as you reach the parking area, you'll be tempted by these worldly pleasures, as I call them, the fruits and goodies coming from forest, and locals, the tribals who are allowed to stay inside the forest. They come and sell these things, but don't just start eating. Just have walked for 6 kilometers. The visit hasn't yet started. You can wait till you come back and eat whatever they have to offer. Let's move ahead. Kanheri Caves, that is the entrance. I mean, not yet the entrance. That's the place where you leave your vehicles and start your trail and treks. So from here, you are always on the foot. Start climbing up, slightly go ahead, and you see this bluish kind of a board. That's the place where there is a ticket window. You buy your tickets and you enter this lovely complex, and welcome to the history of Kanheri. This actually, the caves are numbered. There are, as I said, more than 120 caves, 129 which are numbered till now. This is the first cave. Very rarely people go and check this cave, and because there is nothing inside, they say. It's an uncompleted, unfinished cave. But this is a very important cave from my point of view, because it shows you how the cave architecture started. If you observe this, actually, I could not get a better photograph than this. You can observe that the upper portion of the cave area, the windows and everything, is properly carved, whereas the pillars, upper section of the pillars are very well carved, but the lower section is not completed at all. In fact, the cave section can be seen, the ceiling is completely done and the lower section is not completely done. This actually has helped the historians to understand the method of rock cut carving, how the caves were carved from those days. So the work would start at the topmost portion of the rock. They would make a hole inside the rock by chipping and chiseling, and they would carve down. They would come down carving, leaving spaces for details, and details would be finished later on. This avoided the question of scaffolding. This avoided the question also of accidents, because if you start at the base, rocks might fall on your head. So that is avoided with this simple activity of rock cut caves carving starting from the top. So it's a very important cave to understand this beginning and start of how the caves were carved. So we move a little ahead. This is called a cave number 3. This is probably the most popular and most visited, most important of the caves from various points. All the caves in Kanheri are carved over different phases. The first phase was between the 1st century AD till about 3rd to 4th century AD. Then there was a small gap. The second phase was between the 5th and the 7th century AD. And then there was a gap, and the last phase was around 9th and 10th century. So these caves were carved in these different phases, and then there were additions which were made in the older caves by the later generation. So let's not get too technical about this thing. Just remember that they are carved in different phases, and that's why they get the imprints of different people of different eras. That's what is important and interesting here. So what you see in front of you is the photograph of what we call as a cave number 3. It is a very beautiful Chaitya Gruha. Now here I will tell you something about types of rock cut caves which are there among the Buddhists. Buddhists created rock cut caves either for their stay, which was quite important for them because they did not possess any residential premises of their own. They were the monks, and they wanted places which could be easily maintained. Normally, the Buddhist monks used to travel with the caravans to preach the religion, and they could not travel during the monsoon because the caravans were not there and traveling conditions were quite difficult. So they wanted place to stay during monsoon. That is called as a Varsha Vas in older terms. And they came up with the idea of carving a rock so that it's easy to maintain and you can stay during monsoon in those rock cut caves. But then since they were staying for about 4 months of monsoon over there, they also slowly came up with the idea of having a temple inside the rock as well. So the residences created by the Buddhists inside the rock is called a vihara, and the temples which are created inside the rock are called as Chaitya Gruha. And the Chaitya Gruha has something which is called as a stupa. Stupa is an object which is worshipped. I'll come to that in a bit. So this is the entrance of the cave number 3. This was carved in the first phase. So between first centuries, approximately about 2nd century AD, it was carved, and many additions were made later on. So when the 2nd century, the era when we talk about the 2nd century, there was a first phase of Buddhism also. It was called as Hinayana, and during this phase, the Buddhists did not worship any image, any personified image, any human form of Buddha. Buddha was worshipped always in the form of a symbol, and the symbol was stupa, or the lotus flower, or the footprints, or an umbrella, or a bodhi tree, the tree under which he sat to preach. So he was symbolically presented and never presented in a human form. This cave, this Chaitya Gruha, comes from that era. But then later additions were made, and in the same cave on the sides, there are 2 tall statues of Buddha. That was the addition made after the 5th and 6th century. And they are the statues which are about 7 meters tall. One more interesting part about this particular Chaitya Gruha is there are a lot of inscriptions. Now, when you talk about archaeology and history, there is a technical term for that. They call it inscriptions or epigraphic evidence. Epigraphy is rock cut lettering or wordings, and that is a very important evidence scattered throughout various caves of Kanheri. Now, these caves are, especially this particular cave, has the mention of the great Satavahana ruler, Sri Yajna Satkarani. Yajna Satkarani's name and donation is marked on the cave, and that's why historians could come to arrive at a date of this particular cave. Later on, many other inscriptions were added by later visitors, and this cave actually is the most important, having beautiful sculptures all over. Let's see what is there more to see inside this particular Chaitya Gruha, the cave number 3. Oh yes, before we go inside, there is one more interesting part. Now, I said that there were 3 phases of Kanheri. Kanheri did not lose its importance. It was simply abandoned because of absence of any supporters. Financial problem was there, and Buddhism had started losing its popularity among the people, among the traders, among the rulers who were financing the activities inside Kanheri. So it lost into oblivion, and it was later on abandoned and taken over by the forest. In 1841, the first of the explorations of this area was done by early, we can't really call them archaeologists, they were the history enthusiasts, I would call them. So a person called James Bird was a man who came and rediscovered this area once again in 1841. So he was the one who opened up this particular stupa. If you see, there is a kind of a bamboo barricade and something just in front here. You can see my cursor now. So that's a place where there used to be a stupa, and this particular stupa was opened up by James Bird to find out what is there inside. And he found 2 important copper plates. Okay, historians do not know what happened later of the copper plates, but one of the copper plates has been documented, and I will read what is there on the document and what is the experience of this particular historian, I would say, James Bird. So based on these inscription of that copper plate, we realized that there was actually an existence of one more dynasty called Traikutaka in this region. So one more aspect of history was discovered because of Kanheri. Here, hitherto unknown ruler, Traikutaka dynasty, was discovered with the discovery of this particular copper plates found inside this stupa. So after James Bird, there was E.W. Waste, who did research in this area from 1856 and 61. Then most important discoveries and research was done by Burgess and Bhagwan Lal Indraji. Yeah, Bhagwan Lal Indraji Pandit, the most important discovery. He was the one who deciphered for the first time, in a correct, better way, the inscriptions of Kanheri. So later on, Dr. Shobhana Gokhale did a lot of research, and her collective work of Kanheri inscriptions has provided a lot of more information. And then Dr. Suraj Pandit, who has written two papers, important papers on Kanheri, depending about the bodhisattvas and taras which are found inside over here. And Dr. Himanshu Prabha Rai, she also wrote a very interesting documentation of Kanheri. So these are important people who did a lot of work on Kanheri, and their information has contributed to my knowledge, and that is what is I'm sharing with you. So when this James Bird excavated this first stupa for the first time, he writes in his own words, the largest, I'm reading now, I'm quoting him, the largest of the topes, he calls stupa, selected for examination, appeared to have been one time between 12 to 16 feet high. It was much dilapidated and was penetrated from above to the base, which was built of cut stone. After digging to the level to the ground and clearing away the material, the workmen came to a circular stone, hollow in center and covered at top by a piece of gypsum. Now, this is important what follows. This contained two small copper urns, in one of which were some ashes mixed with a ruby, a pearl, and small pieces of gold, and a small gold box containing a piece of cloth. In the other, a silver box, some ashes were found. Two copper plates containing legible inscriptions in the Lat, which is actually Brahmi, or cave character, accompanied the urns. And these, as far as I have yet been able to decipher, at that time he had not been able to decipher them. The work was done much later. So the copper pairs, the smaller of the copper plates, bears an inscription in two lines, at the last part of which contains Buddhist creed. So he mentions the copper plates, he mentions what is written, and later on, Bhagwan Lal Indraji has deciphered this particular copper plate and finding out the name of the dynasty. So just to state the importance of the location, I'm spending more time here because these are up to here. Everyone can go. People who have limitations in their walking, or people who get breathless, etc., they can easily go and up to this section without any problem. So I'm telling more about this area, which can be easily seen by everyone. So the copper plates mentioned the Kutaka dynasty, as I mentioned. And let's now move a little ahead and see what is there inside the cave number 3, the biggest Chaitya Gruha. The Buddha statue, they are the statues added on later in the 5th and 6th century, stand on both sides as we enter, 7 meters high or tall. And in front of us, these were carved at the same time when the cave was carved in the 2nd century CE. These are the donor couples. They stand on both sides of the main entrance door. Now, if you see, it's very interesting sculpture. These sculptures show the wealth of the people, the dressing styles, the earrings and jewelry that they are wearing, and in fact, their ease of behaving with each other. If you see, the women are passing their hands behind their husbands or their male partners, and men are holding some objects in the hand. They are the flower bouquets. They are welcoming you. People are always, I mean, if you see clearly, women are always shown in a bare-breasted fashion. That was probably the tradition at that time. But men also wear heavy jewelry. So jewelry, earrings, etc., worn by men was not something which is new fashion. It has always been there in Indian traditions. These are the donor couples who have financed the carving or creation of the caves or some sections of the cave. This is the inner portion, the semi-spherical, it's a very interesting shape. It is called as the shape like a back of an elephant. There is a technical term to it. It's called apsidial, A-P-S-E, apsidial. And one interesting feature that we see over here is the central portion, the stupa, which is there in front of you. The upper portion of the stupa is damaged, but then normally above this rounded section of stupa, there'll be a square portion, which is called as harmika, and above the square portion, there'll be a flag post in wood. Now, if you have been to Karla Caves, you must have seen this similar kind of a stupa with the harmika as well as the flag post intact at the top of it. This particular cave is also interesting again. If you observe the pillars here, some of the pillars are beautifully carved from the top section, and some pillars at the back are not completely carved. Yeah. So again, cave digging was a very laborious and time-consuming activity. It also needed experts who knew how to carve the caves and the sculptors who knew how to make sculptures. As a result, finances were needed to get these sculptures because nobody was doing the work for free and charity. Yeah. So these finances were obtained from the donations given by the traders and the rulers. But then in some cases, the donations were not sufficient enough, or to attract more donations from the next or future visiting devotees, they would leave some parts of the cave unfinished. For example, some pillars are not complete because probably any new visitor who would come and say, okay, I would like to finance sculpture of this particular pillar, and I will give this particular amount for the work. So that would be incorporated or added. This kind of work would never stop. Rock cut carving is something that would never be complete, as one single lot. People could always go and add something as a donation, as their devotion to this particular cave. The passage which is behind these pillars is a passage to go around the stupa without disturbing the congregation in the middle. The priests and people who come for prayers would sit in the middle and do their prayers, and the people who just want to pass by without disturbing these people who are praying could simply pass to the other side of the pillars and continue and complete their circumambulation going around the stupa and come out without disturbing the congregation in the middle. That is the main reason of this form of arrangement of passage behind the pillars. So most important, as you see, once again, I will repeat, because there is no statue of Buddha here. You will not see Buddha statue. Stupa itself means Buddha. And this was the first phase of Buddhism where images of Buddha or Buddha in a human form was not worshipped. Let's move on. After this, the trek starts and you will slightly climb up. You will go around this section and you will slightly climb up on these steps and reach this particular area. Now you will be standing in front of something which is called as cave number 11. Now this particular cave is very, very curious, and I would say that this is one more unique feature of Kanheri. It's a huge long cave, and I have a photograph from inside, but before we go inside, let us see what is around. Now this photograph is taken somewhere during the end of the year, December, January. Most of the greenery is not there anymore, and you can see the old steps which are carved in the mountain itself, in the rock itself. Now the ASI has done a great work of having a kind of a barrier for the people who want to climb up from here and to avoid accidents, especially during monsoons when it gets all slippery because of moss. So this is a quite old photograph with the barrier which is not complete, but now the barrier is up to here. Entire section is covered by it. And as you go up from here, this particular section will be approximately the topmost portion of the group of Kanheri Caves. And from here, you could see the entire western side of the Borivali. And if the day is very clear, you can see even the sea, which will be around about, I would say, 10 to 12 kilometers far from the Kanheri Caves on the western side. Yeah. In this cave number 11, sorry, in the cave number 11, you will get to see this kind of rock structures. At the end of these passages, there are cells which were probably made for the important priest who is to live over there. And there is on this side, in this particular section, there is a statue of Buddha in the preaching form, Dhamma Chakra Mudra. Yeah. So he's sitting and preaching. So initially it was believed that this place was made for students who would come for studies or other priests who were approaching certain level of understanding and maturity, who would come and gather over there for prayers. But later on, some historians have a different suggestion. So let me let me quote from Himanshu Prabha Dattarai what she says about this particular cave. It seems to have been well suited for congregational purposes. It has 10 sails on three sides and two rows of benches in the center of the hall. This fortnightly celebration. Now, she mentions that there is a record of fortnightly celebrations which were organized at the second and third phase of Buddhism, about 6th, 7th century onwards, where devotees and visitors would come once every 15 days on a full moon and new moon nights and visit the priests over there and offer the donations at this particular spot, as per Himanshu Prabha Rai. So she says that on these occasions, the monks recited the rules of conduct, while the laity, that is a lay person, reaffirmed their vows through donations or gifts to the Buddhist monks. The earliest list include, there were some lists which were accepted by the Buddhist religion as the donations. So the earliest of the list included only four categories of objects suitable as gifts. They were they were robes, food given as alms, place for rest, and medicine. But by the time of 3rd century BC already, the list had already expanded to include 14 items, which included uh, vehicle, garland, perfume, paste, dwellings, material of lighting lamps, etc., and clothing, of course. A much debated matter within the Buddhist monastic order was the acceptance of donation of land and money. So this seems to have been allowed at a later stage, and this particular cave was designated or created for such kind of activity of congregation and exchanging or offering the donations and gifts to the monks and the priests. Um, this is a very interesting cave, and this also has a beautiful rock inscription which details who has carved this and what especially when they say that I finance this place. They never said I finance this. They would always take the names of their ancestors, the ruler in which under whose rule they traveled over there, and the village from where they came, and then they say that okay, this particular place was donated by us. So it is a very humble way of presenting it and mentioning their names as the donors. This is one more important feature of Kanheri, as you see in the pictures. As I mentioned earlier, that there are water reservoirs everywhere in most of the caves, wherever the caves exist in India. But the channeling system, so beautifully designed channeling system, is not present everywhere. So you can see the back portion in the first photograph. I'll show you the arrow. This is a passage of a stream which flows in between the group of Canary Caves. In the monsoon, it is full of water. In the summertime, there is no water. And then these channels have been created to divert the water of monsoon coming down from the slopes of the hills or off the river, and to take them in a certain fashion. There is a kind of a hollow which is created in the ground to allow these sediments, the dust and soil and rocks to settle down inside, and the clearer water would flow ahead towards the reservoir. Second portion you can see over here, second photograph, nice channel made in stone, and it is directed toward the underground water reservoir. And the third and the photograph, it is to the rightmost portion, is the reservoir tanks, which are at the beginning of the caves. Caves number 2 and 3, you will see these water reservoirs. So one more important portion. People think that there are no paintings in Kanheri. There are paintings in Kanheri. This is one incomplete painting, which is there in the cave number 34. So this cave has a semi-finished painting, and naturally it is from the second and third phase of Buddhism. Buddha is shown here touching the ground in a Bhumi Sparsha Mudra. So these caves are often guarded closed nowadays to avoid any damage to the old paintings. It's a very nice way of protecting these paintings. So ASI normally would not nowadays let anybody enter these caves. So you might have to take some permission before that, and you might be able to go in there with the permission from the ASI. Let's move on. Yeah, this is probably the most important discovery of Kanheri. This photograph is quite old. I myself had clicked some photographs, but well, earlier days, and I could not afford greater quality of cameras. So my photograph was in bad shape. So I took this from the net. This is the photograph which shows Buddha seated in the center. And then we have the 11-headed Avalokiteshvara. The famous Avalokiteshvara. Avalokiteshvara is Bodhisattva. As per the Buddhist Mahayana tradition, Bodhisattva is considered as either of an incarnation of Buddha or a form of Buddha, but technically Bodhisattva is a step before becoming Buddha. So a person can attain a level of Bodhisattva and he is just one step below from the state of Buddha where he obtains nirvana. But then at the stage of Bodhisattva, he says that no, I do not want to go to the level of Buddha or to attain nirvana. I want to help others to understand the problems of life and to get them out of it, show them compassion and help them. And that is why he takes many births. And these births are told, and the stories of these births are told as Jataka Katha. So Bodhisattva is a one step before attaining the Buddhahood. Buddhahood. And in that stage, he took many incarnations and many lives and showed the compassion towards the others. The story of 11-headed Bodhisattva is the third part of Buddhism, which is called as a Vajrayana. In this Vajrayana, there is a story which says that when Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, he's also called as Padma Pani, but then let us stick to one name at a time, Avalokiteshvara. And Avalokiteshvara, when he saw the huge problems and misunderstandings and quarrels and misery of life, he started thinking, and he got so sad with the thinking that his head broke into pieces. And the Buddha, Amitabha Buddha, who is the governing Buddha of Avalokiteshvara, he came down and he joined these separate parts of his head in form of individual heads and joined them together and put on the head of put on the body of Avalokiteshvara, giving him 11 heads. So that is one of the stories which is formed with Avalokiteshvara and of Vajrapani sect. So this is the close-up photograph which I took later on. It's about 10-year-old photograph. You can clearly see the first ever statue of 11-headed Avalokiteshvara anywhere in the world. It's in Kanheri, our own heritage. Let's go ahead. During the third phase, here we come in the third phase of Buddhism, which is Vajrayana. In the Vajrayana, we see the 11-headed Avalokiteshvara, and we also see the female aspect of Buddha, which are called as Tara. This particular photograph shows Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara in the middle. His governing Buddha, the Amitabha Buddha, which is seen at the top here. Yeah, and these two are the Taras. Taras are considered as the female form of Buddha, or considered also as mother of Buddha, or considered as the power of Buddha, equivalent of Buddha. So there are many interpretations of Tara, but in short, the concept of worshipping a female deity in Buddhism is a practice which evolved with the third wave of Buddhism, I would say, which is called as Vajrayana. Now, very importantly, by the time Vajrayana became popular, Buddhism, most of the Buddhist aspects had lost its popularity from the lands of India and it had moved up towards the Himalayan area. And in Himalaya, Vajrayana concept evolved much better in Ladakh, in Sikkim, now in India, in Bhutan, in Tibet, and in Nepal. The 5 places where it evolved much better. But then these are the earlier phases of Vajrapani and Vajrayana sect. I'm sorry, not Vajrapani, Vajrayana sect of Buddhism, earliest phase. And this is one more important feature of Kanheri, because nowhere else, apart from Kanheri, we see the grouping of these 3 different and distinct streams of Buddhism at one single place. It was quite difficult to get these images because I had to, sit on the net for a long time. And these images are of the Pahlavi and the Japanese inscriptions, which are found in cave number 66. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, cave number 90. It's cave number 90. So cave number 90 on the walls, Pahlavi inscription mentions people who came from Iran, their ancestry, etc. But more importantly, it mentions a date, which is the beginning of 11th century. It mentions the date as the year 1009 AD. And with that, we come to know that this place was still visited by the people in the year in the 11th century. What is more interesting is the Japanese script. The Japanese script actually has been found this information on WordPress, the site WordPress. I have given the source at the end of this thing, by an author called Raruka. Now, I do not know the original name of this person, but then the Japanese inscription has been translated into English, and we understand that it says this one as Namo Saddharma Pundarika Sutraya, Namo Nichirena Mahabodhisattvaya. Now, with this, the person says that Nichirena was a Buddhist monk who lived in Japan in the 13th century, in the beginning of 13th century. So naturally, when this particular message was carved, there must have been people who had come from Japan or influenced by the thoughts of Japanese priest Nichirena in the 13th century. It can't be before 13th century. That's what the author says. So this particular one, Japanese one, on the right-hand side, dates back to 1235 AD. Yeah, or maybe later on. But then Nichirena lived. Nichirena himself was born in 1235 and died in 1285. So this must be during that phase, at least in 13th century. One more interesting feature of Kanheri: you do not see the Japanese inscriptions in any other Buddhist caves. This particular portion, as we are coming towards the end of this presentation, is one very least visited part. Approach is also quite difficult and tricky. I suggest not to go there because the staircase and everything is broken. And this particular place is called as Necropolis by the early historians, the place where the burial of the Buddhist monks who lived in this area was done. So in most traditions, actually, the Buddhist monks were cremated, and their relics or the bones and the ashes would be put inside stupa. And the stupas, as you see, the bases over here are made in brick, and perhaps the upper portion was made in stone. But then because of the age, so many years have passed by, the forest had taken over. And of course, the quality of rock is quite inferior, and there is erosion of rock. Because of all these factors, we do not see many stupas intact. We see only the basis of all these stupas, but there are about 25 stupas over here, which are the places where the relics of the earlier Buddhist monks were kept. A beautiful view. I'm sorry, I could not get a nice view, but then if you see, you do not see many modern constructions. You are 6 kilometers inside the forest. Of course, from one angle, nowadays you get to see the constructions at Gorai and the western part of Borivali. But then this is a beautiful look at the parts of Kanheri. I mentioned that in 2016, a new discovery was made of new caves, a group of caves. This cut that you see on the right hand side is from Times of India, published in that time, and it shows the location of these caves, which is quite towards the northeast of Kanheri, inside the forest, deep inside the forest. So it shows the importance of Kanheri as a location, because the ports of Sopara, which was developed in the 3rd century BC, was not very far, about 45 kilometers. Then the port of Kalyan, which was developed much later in the 10th, 11th century, was close by. And then in between, there was a port of Chaul to the south of Mumbai, which was also an important port of these rulers who ruled in these regions. So because of the presence of these ports, there was traders activity, and with the activity, the caves flourished in this area. One of the last photographs here during monsoon. See the cave number 11 again. Now the barrier is complete, as you can see here. This is the top portion of cave number 11. And as you can go up, but then you have to be extremely careful, because all these steps gather moss during monsoon and they become very, very slippery. So you should be extremely careful when you go up these caves. So it's again the topmost portion. You can see here on the left hand side is the topmost portion of the caves, and the beautiful view can be had from there. You can just go and sit over there and admire the setting sun or the modern development and the greenery around you. So that is, with that I come to an end of my presentation. These are the sources of information from where I gathered my information and photographs. 2 of the photographs are my own, and the remaining photographs come from these various sources. I thank them all, and I would certainly like to thank Indiatourism Mumbai for having given me an opportunity to talk about this lovely part of our history. And thanks a lot. With this, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you.
Yeah.
I hope you like this story. Just let me know what you think about it, and I would be taking questions now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you for putting us on the time machine, Mr. Shailesh,
yeah.
and taking us back in time
Thank
to
you.
understand these outstanding open air museum of masterpieces in Kanheri. In
Thanks, sir.
fact, I thank you for immersing us in one of the oldest storytelling about the installations that are in this Kanheri. We could witness the unique architecture and marvels from the 2nd century BC. Your story gave us a testimony of how Buddhism has shaped the history of India and the world, and amazing artworks and architectures that manifest in Indian ingenuity. In fact, while we talk about Buddhism, a lot of us know about the the site, which is the famous place associated where Buddha lived and walked. But there is a lot of history of Buddhist heritage across India, where his followers and the Buddhist monk took, in fact, right up till the southern tip of India, where we can find. So, especially the western region and the central India has a unique Buddhist heritage, and Kanhari is one of the testimony to it. In fact, listeners who have joined in, I really thank you for taking your time and listening to this great story. And in fact, for those living in Mumbai, in fact, it is a great weekend destination to experience the glory and marvels of this exquisite architecture with your family. Mr. Shailesh, we have some questions which have
Sure.
come in, and I would like to kind of request you to see if you can reply to them. And
Yes, sure, sure. I'll just check these questions in the chat box. I'll take them
yeah,
one by
yeah,
one.
please,
Yeah,
yes.
let me just go up a little and find out the questions here. Um, okay. Um, yeah, Sanjay Naik had said that some references regarding Kanheri Caves regarding Chaul, please mention. Yes, I did mention that Chaul was an important port during the Trekutaka dynasty. And in the second phase of Kanheri, this particular destination was quite important. Um, the Sopara, the port, was established by Emperor Ashoka himself. We have the rock edict of Emperor Ashoka at Sopara. So when Chaul was functioning, Sopara also was functioning. And in between, of course, if you see the map of Kanheri, the northern portion of the national park, it borders the creek of Vasai. Now, Vasai Creek is over the river called Ulhas, and you can enter from the sea, go into the Vasai Creek, and go up the stream towards Kalyan. So the Kalyan, the third port which evolved later on, and that became the third most important destination during the Silahar dynasty. That also shows the importance apart from Chol. So these three ports gave the importance to this location. Yeah.
Yeah, in
Um,
fact, sorry,
yeah, go on,
we
please.
have the privilege of joint director of Maharashtra Tourism, Mr. Savalkar, who is also here. And
Yeah,
I think he has put the same question on Suparapuram and Kanhari Caves. Any
yeah,
relationships? Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, Sopara was called as Shurparaka. And in the third century BC, it was an important port. And it was so important, as I said, that Emperor Ashoka himself took notice of this, and his edict, which was found over there, now is in the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Vastu Sangrahalaya, the museum at Kolaba. This particular port had also, Emperor Ashoka also got built a stupa at this location, and it is easily accessible. You just have to go to Nala Sopara station, and it's few, maybe I think 2 kilometers away from the station to the west. You can immediately find the stupa, and the relics are still there. So that was important. Chaul, the importance of Chaul came in from the period of Trekutaka, from the about 4th, 5th century onwards, and it was important port till about arrival of, I mean, in the Portuguese time as well. So this port continued to be important for a very, very long time. In Chaul, we have had Shilahars after the Kokan Shilahars, as we call them, as after the period of Trikutakas. And then we had the local dynasties who were ruling in this region. We had the presence of even Adil Shahi. And then we had the presence of the, in Chaul excavations, people have found Chinese pottery, which also shows that there was a trade that happened in that region. So Chaul certainly was an important port. Yeah. Um,
And there's the question from Anjali: what is the red color used in the unfinished paintings in Kanhari?
red color is probably some. These are all natural pigments, crushed rock, probably some something similar to the Nehru that we use, or Geru that we use. I'm not really sure of what kind of paint that has been used over there, but it could be something. It is because these pigments are not. These are all mineral pigments, not plant-based pigments. Plant-based pigments have different. They have tendency of changing the color, and rock-based pigments don't change the color, and the color still appears to not have changed. So it has to be some mineral-based paint. That's all I can say. Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah.
And
What
in
else?
fact, there are a couple of uh, questions, if you can.
Which kingdoms was ruling when Iranian and
And
Japanese
Japanese
travels
travel.
visited? That was a question by Anjali Tashi.
Tasi.
So actually, when it talks about Pahlavi inscriptions, the reference I got it, and the person who wrote that reference, he said that it's interesting to see the Pahlavi inscriptions because the Zoroastrianism was already dismantled from Iran. And it's very interesting to see how come the Pahlavi inscriptions are written in the period when Zoroastrianism did not exist in Iran anymore. So that is one. That's all I know about this inscription. And Japanese travelers, which kingdom I cannot say, but they mention the Nichirena, the priest who lived between 1235 and 1285. So AD. So you can. It's easy to find out which ruler ruled Japan at that time. Yeah. Then.
And
Then.
also,
Then. Then.
I would like
Yeah.
to request you to give your contact number and email ID for the
Sure.
listeners, so that if anybody would like to connect with you, it will
Yes.
be kind of helpful to them to
Sure. So
connect.
my name is
And
same on Facebook. You have Shailesh Mulley, and I will my email address. I'm just typing here in the chat box. it's there. Any other questions? I have.
Uh, no,
Uh,
I believe kind of you have answered most of the question.
yes,
And
thank you.
once again, on behalf of India Tourism Mumbai, I thank you for this extensive research. I know a lot of effort goes in when you want to present a story, and your efforts are seen on the chat box, the reactions, the feedback, where people have kind of really appreciated. And in fact, for me too, it was a great personal learning of this magnificent Kanheri Caves, and which are around our own the urban Mumbai. In fact, listeners, we will continue with the storytelling series by the regional level guides in the western region. In fact, we are in midst of the Navratri celebrations, and tomorrow, in fact, we have another session coming up on Durga Puja and Navratri, again by one of our senior guide who will be speaking about the festival Mondirita Sen Gupta. So please join in, and we will send you the details for connecting. With this, I once again thank Mr. Shailesh, and we look forward to having you in future as we go forward with this storytelling session.
Thank
Listeners,
you so
once
much.
again, it's very
Thanks.
important you are
Thank you.
joining and encouraging our storytellers is something very key to success of this series. And we have seen a good participation from across on a Sunday afternoon. And you all have a great evening, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Thank you so
Namaste.
much. Thank you, sir. Thank you, India Tourism Mumbai.
Thank you.
Namaskar.
Bye. Parul, you can end the session.